Hello and welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Now, as you can see, the Christmas lights are still up. I know that it's technically after Christmas, but I mean, we're still in December. But my January videos will not have the fantastic Christmas tree behind it. So anyway, I hope you all had a great Christmas, a great Boxing Day. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a nice sort of like 4-day weekend. So this week's episode is looking at The Power by Naomi Alderman. Now, this was actually recommended to me by my sister Nikki, and we did do actually a book to film adaptation review earlier this year, which was The Little Prince. So please go check it out. It is a very good book to film adaptation. And she recommended me this book, and basically the premise is that all over the world, women are discovering they have a power. With a flick of their fingers, they can inflict terrible pain, even death. So because they can sort of like use electricity and things like that. So suddenly every man on the planet finds they've lost control. So the premise is really, really good. It's essentially a case of, women have realized that they've got this power, and the men are realizing that actually what they've previously had in place, the status quo as it is no longer going to be the status quo. And the fact that, if, like, unfortunately it is a thing with a lot of women when they go out at night, or like the other day I was walking, I got off a bus and a guy got off behind me, and I'm sure he was absolutely lovely, but it was the fear sort of like, so I just sort of sped up to get to like a well-lit street. But it's those little things that you kind of like, women are constantly on high alert because not all men are bad, and this is not a political discussion, so this is not going to go anything like that. But it's just for the premise of the book, because now that's turned on its head. So now it's a case of like, when men go out at night, or if they're out past a certain point, are they fair game to the women? Because the women have now got the power. The women can now control it better. They can control the situation. And it's just, and like, so for example, you've got sort of parallel stories being told between sort of like certain characters. You've got a man that he's reporting from all these dangerous places with the women, and they learn to respect him because he's very respectful of how he reports it, and he's sort of like frontline and center. But then obviously he's there when it goes horrifically wrong. You've got sort of like bosses, underworld bosses, realizing that actually to have women with those kind of powers on their team is going to be a lot better, and it's trying to get the strongest one. Basically, you've got a woman that's running for political office, and she's got it, but she's hiding that she's got it. So she's hiding that she's got this power so that she can continue going further and further to try and make changes. And then you've got, and this was the story that sort of, this was the part of the story that kind of struck me the most, was in the sort of more impoverished states where women are used as slaves for flesh and for other things. And they're rising up and they're becoming the power force. And it's just, but then you see the balance as it tips from men being in control to women being in control, and you see the slow decline. Now, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but honestly, it was just such a good read, and it was an interesting read as well, because it makes you think that obviously, I mean, I know, please let me know what you take from the book from this, because I feel like I might have taken something slightly different to what other people might have taken. Nikki, if you watch this episode, please leave below in the comments of what you took from the book, because I know we've had this discussion. But what I took from it is the fact that when you had sort of like the men in the positions of power, they weren't really thinking, as logically as they should, and as you know, in other states, especially in the Middle East, it's, when they're in power, women have no rights whatsoever. But then on the flip side, when women then came to power, they then did the exact extreme, and they made sure that the men had no rights. And it's sort of like, does an eye for an eye work out? Does the vengeance work out? Should they have looked at different ways of doing it? Should they have, and it was so interesting to see how Alderman deals with it, and it's so interesting to see how she writes it. And as you're going through the book, you're sympathizing with characters you never thought you'd sympathize. You're watching the slow decline of certain places, but the rise of others, and it's just so interesting as a book and as a premise as well. Because what would happen if women suddenly took control of the entire world? So I honestly, I really did enjoy this book, and I'm so glad that my sister recommended it to me. Oh, just thrown it across the floor there. So I would recommend this book to anybody to read because it is so poignant, and it's not. I mean, yes, the reason women take control is because they've got electricity and they can now use that to their advantage. So men are scared. But it's more poignant for the fact that you do see this going on where women in certain states and certain countries don't have any rights. And you see the decline and you see all of that. And so the way that the way that Alderman's written it is just so fantastically creative to shine a spotlight on what's going on at the moment, but putting it in like a fantastical kind of world. So please, honestly, do get this book. It is such a great book. It gets a 4 out of 5 for me. Just because I'm not going to discuss the ending. I've said that twice now, but it's why it doesn't get a 5 out of 5. But if you do read this book, please do leave it below in the comments. I love hearing about all the books that people have read. I love hearing that people have enjoyed my recommendations. So just to let you know as well, in the new year, the channel will be slightly different. So instead of being a book review, a book to film adaptation, a book review, a book to film adaptation, I'm doing 3 book reviews and then a book to film adaptation. Just because I'm finding I'm reading a lot more books than I am doing book to film adaptations. So that's how that's gonna work in the future. If anyone wants to be a guest star, if anyone's sort of like, in my area, I live in Leeds. I'm not gonna give my full address, I'm not crazy, don't worry. So if anyone wants to be a guest star, please do drop it below in the comments. If there's any book to film adaptations you think I should do, any book reviews that you think I should do, that you don't think I've already read, or even if you think I've already read, please leave it below in the comments. Thank you so much for your continued support this year. Honestly, it's been so much to me. Have a fantastic new year, guys. And always keep it contento.